Welcome to a Raiders Fan Radio special report, your most trusted Raiders news and analysis source on the internet, featuring Sonny Murf, Brick Tamlin, and Champ Kine. News with no bias, news with no exception, delivering nothing but the truth, so help us God. Your Raiders news unfiltered. It's cold outside, but the takes are hot here in the Dago Dungeon. And now to the breaking news desk, it's Sonny and the Raiders Fan Radio News team.
Welcome in to a special broadcast of Raiders Fan Radio. I am your host, Sonny Dago, fresh off the golf course. Shot a best ever, 82. With me, as always, is my co-host, Murf. Murf, how you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, Sonny. Glad to be here for another breaking news episode of Raiders Fan Radio.
Murf, typically we do not broadcast early. We do not broadcast prematurely. We do not broadcast, Murf, outside of a normal spectrum. But today is a special broadcast for a very special reason.
No one likes it when you go prematurely, Sonny.
No one likes it when you go prematurely. Murf, no one likes it at all. Today, Murf, we have a special breaking news announcement.
Are we going to do these voices for the whole show?
No, no, we're not. All right, Brick.
Despite us having family that's in AM radio, we're going to let these go.
You can stop hiding. You didn't kill anybody with the trident. You're okay. We wanted to do a special Gruden episode where we kind of mocked all of our favorite announcers of the past, and we're doing our best Anchorman impressions there. Not that you guys can tell, but I am in a glass case of emotions because we freaking hired John Gruden. All right, God. Let's talk. Let's just jump in. We want to talk about Gruden and Gruden only. We're only going to be here for half an hour. I see you guys are active in the chat, so we'll be reading your comments. Please share your thoughts. This is just to talk about one Jonathan Wayne Gruden. Does he have a middle name, Murph? Do you know what John Gruden's middle name is?
I don't know. I know his full name is Jonathan, but I think that's why he's spelled it just J-O, which is short. But hey, we still will have this up as an audio-only podcast. You can still check us out there. But you can find us, a show, and our regular shows on iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, CastBox, TuneIn, anywhere you find your favorite podcasts at. You can always find us with Raiders Fan Radio on any of those. And so please check us out there, like it, subscribe it if you like it. If you don't like it, like it anyways. Just do us a favor because it helps us keep the show going.
Okay, no more plugs. No more plugs like top of your head. Middle name is David.
We got to plug the show.
Middle name is David. John Gruden's middle name is more important than our show, Murph. David Gruden. Do you think our team is going to be good?
We're going from JDR to JDG.
Well, JDR. So, okay, the Raiders were R-rated under Jack Del Rio. They were a horror show, right? You couldn't watch them. But now, under JDG, it'll be a little more family friendly. They're going to win some games finally, Murph. It won't be as bad to watch. We're going from R-rated to G-rated, JDR to JDG. All right, let's talk about it, Murph. Gruden. So, okay, if you're in the chat, just what are your thoughts? We're getting Gruden. What are your thoughts? 10 years, $10 million a year for
Hold on, what?
Go ahead.
Allegedly, right?
Allegedly.
None of this is confirmed until Tuesday. But
10
we can
years,
all
10 years, $10 million. $100 million, highest paid coaching contract in the history of the NFL. Going to be announced on Tuesday because he has to do the game this Saturday. But it's basically a done deal. They came out and they said that the Raiders satisfied the Rooney Report, that they did everything okay there. And Murph, it looks like everything is a go. We are going to get John Gruden as the next head coach of the Raiders. Murph, I will let you take the lead. And what are your thoughts, man?
All right, well, let's start with the positive angle on this because there's so much to discuss. And so I'm a positive guy. I'm an optimist. Let's look at the bright side of all of this first. The bright side, Raider Nation, is that our team has won the AFC West 5 times since 1983, since our last Super Bowl win. 3 of those you can directly tie to one Jonathan David Gruden. Okay. We won it in 1985. We won it in 1990. And then during the 3 Gruden years, which the third year is technically the Callahan year, but we all know who was responsible for that team that went to the Super Bowl and then lost to John Gruden. Right. So those 3 Gruden years were
wait. Gruden built the team that he then left and beat. Fascinating.
That's correct.
Fascinating.
I know. Fascinating.
Breaking
I know.
news.
And then,
only find that here on RFR.
I know. And then thanks to our inept head coach, which is going to be potentially a member of the new staff as well, was the reason we lost it. But anyways, that's aside the point. So, but keep it on Gruden. So the last time that we were relevant with any regularity, I'm not talking about the 12-4 last year, or the 8-8 when we were on the upswing with Hugh Jackson and all those different times where there was glimmers of hope. But I'm talking about year in, year out on the regular, a contender in the AFC, and especially in our division. The last time that happened was when John Gruden was the head coach of our football team. So purely on the idea that guy could then bring us back to that sort of relevancy and that sort of production, just on that alone, that's a good thing. So then you start building on it from there. You start building on what is he going to bring to the team? What kind of excitement is he going to bring to the team? What kind of free agents could the guy bring to the team? What kind of a staff is somebody with that capability able to build? What kind of an offensive mind is he going to be able to bring? Because, while the guy may have been away from football, quote, away from coaching anyways,
but he hasn't been away from football.
But he hasn't been away from football. That's the thing, right? Is that you guys still in it. So I think there's a lot of wonderful, positive things that go along with this. Now, is there questions? Sure, because there's questions about anybody you bring in ever, because winning is not a guarantee in the league, despite what your resume is. So there's always going to be questions. The good news about this is that the questions that are lingering with John Gruden are really not that big of questions when you compare them to what they may be if we bring in another head coach, or simply some of the coaches that we've had in recent history. What were the questions behind those guys? Those questions don't even exist with John Gruden, because John Gruden is not only capable, but has this football brain that's massive that none of us can even really fathom. You look at his work ethic and you look at the amount of information that man can process and understands about this sport. It's really, there's only a couple of people currently in the NFL that can touch it. You brought it up last week that Belichick is one of them. After that, man, it's not many. So I think that the positive things around Gruden are many, and they far outweigh the negatives. I'll just throw out a couple of things that, look, even as much as I'm Pollyanna about Gruden coming back, and I firmly believe that was the most exciting part of my Raider fandom ever. Look, I'm kind of an old guy now. I'm 44 years old, but I was a kid when the Raiders won the Super Bowl last. Okay. So it's been a long time since we've been at any kind of high level, right? Well, those years in the middle when Gruden was there, they were incredibly exciting. That was the best time ever in my lifetime to be a Raider fan. I wasn't living through my father's fandom of the 70s. I wasn't living through what I knew of them as a kid in the early 80s. This was me as an adult experiencing what the Raiders were all about. And it was glorious. So, where was I going with that? Now I'm off track.
I don't know. You're just gushing about Gruden, man.
Okay, I'm gushing. Oh, that's what it was. Okay, so despite all those wonderful things,
so gushing about Gruden reminded you that you're gushing about Gruden.
Yeah. So it reminded me that I didn't want to just gush about Gruden. That I did want to bring up that there are a couple of things that you could argue, or at least I think are worth considering.
Okay.
That despite my fondness and affinity for all of this, there are a couple things that I'm like, Okay, so first off, $100 million, fine. It's Mark Davis's money. He can spend it however he wants.
Wait. Don't you don't think that you are highly educated enough to have an opinion about how another man spends his money? I mean, Murf, you're over there in Tennessee. Don't you have the right to condemn Mark Davis about how he spends his money? And Murf, don't you have the right to condemn John Gruden for having such an impressive resume and being such a football mind? That shame on him that he got that much money. Murf, shouldn't you be able to bash him how he gets money and how Mark spends money?
Isn't it the craziest thing? Like,
it's freaking stupid,
do we talk about another man's money in public when you're not on the internet?
No.
So why would you do it when you are on the internet? Like, look, these things are made public, and it's fine. If you want to scrutinize it all you want, knock yourself out. It's one thing when we scrutinize player salaries, because that impacts the salary cap, which in turn impacts what kind of quality of players and you're made public, players you retain or whatever it may be or sign. It impacts on the field performance. So I think looking at salaries from the player perspective makes a little more sense as a fan. But for coaches, what do you care? Who can pay him $900 million? What do we care? Does the guy get W's? That's what we should care about. So anyway, so the money, who cares? Doesn't bother me. Here's the thing, though. The lead jumps out a little bit. 10 years. Now, look, we talked about on our regular show, 3 years, yes, for sure. 5 years, likely, probably best case scenario, doubled us. 10 years. Now, so here's the way I look at this. Is that a negative? Not necessarily. Is it worth evaluating as a fan? Yeah, because that could impact on-field performance. If he sucks, if he goes 2-14 for 3 years out of the chute, we're all going to be screaming about the 10-year deal, right, that we got for him. But here's why I think Mark Davis did what he did, and here's why I think that it's at a minimum justified when it comes to John Gruden. We have never had, for any significant length of time, consistency at the head coaching position of the Oakland Raiders or / Los Angeles Raiders.
False.
Never.
False.
Okay. Who?
John Madden.
Wrong.
What? 1969 to 1978.
Yes. And
Tom Flores. Okay. 1979 to 1987. Let me remind you, that was when the Raiders became one of the most winningest teams in the whole entire sports realm.
I understand that, and I understand the tenures of those two men. But if you look, I wasn't around for it to see it firsthand, or I was a little kid. But by all accounts, those were very volatile times. And even when you read the book, the Al Davis book by our friend Bruce Kebrick and John Kingdon, who's been on our show, those were very volatile times. Those were still years. I mean, you look at why Madden retired. It was because he couldn't physically, he couldn't handle it anymore on game day.
True, but it was still stability. It was still the most stable the Raiders have been. And that's when you look at it, they were in the playoffs almost every year during that tenure.
But the tenure, though, doesn't provide the stability. Marvin Lewis has been in Cincinnati forever. Is that not a volatile situation? The guy just said he was going to quit.
Look at. I think you're comparing two things. You're saying stability, and then you're saying consistency, and then you're saying volatile. Whatever you're saying. What I'm saying is for 18 years, the Raiders had two coaches. In that 18-year span, they missed the playoffs 6 times. That's it. 6 times in 18 years. Yes. And this will be the first time we've had a coach for 10 years, if he stays, since Madden.
I get it. We're arguing semantics. That's not the point. The point is not the length of their service. My point is that those were questions and those were volatile times between the owner and the coach. Okay. They didn't know that they were going to always be coming back. And sometimes they didn't. That's what my point is. What this hire is going to do, this is an anti-Al move. This is a Mark Davis move.
Oh, yeah, this is total Mark Davis.
That's what I'm trying to say. That's what the point that I'm trying to get at is that this has given us a consistency at the head coaching position that is unprecedented for the Raiders and really is unprecedented for the league, period. Mm-hmm. But what I'm saying is that if you're going to give somebody that kind of, that's the guy you want to give it to. If you're going to give someone 10 years, Gruden's the one you want to give it to. You're not going to give it to somebody you're not going to give it to Matt Patricia or anybody. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're going to give it to somebody like that. So I think that it's justified based on who he is and the track record of this team. And then the last part of it is this. I think Mark Davis likes to be the owner of the Oakland Raiders. He doesn't want to be the football guy. He lets the football people do the football stuff, much like the Rooneys, much like the Maras. The Maras are so much let the football people do the football stuff. They turned the football team into a disaster this year. When you look at the whole Ben McAdoo and Eli Manning thing, my point is that Mark Davis wants to be that guy. He wants to be Robert Kraft. He wants to sit back, let the football people do the football stuff. I'll take care of the ownership of the football team. He's not a Jerry Jones. He's not a Dan Snyder. He's not a hands-on kind of owner like that. So by hiring somebody like John Gruden, it puts him in the position to let the football guy do the football stuff. Reggie can handle the money. And I think it will be a very harmonious working relationship between all those guys, and in the way that the front office is structured. So on the front end, so I said all that to say this, on the front end, 10 years kind of smacks you in the face. 10 years kind of hits you.
Yeah,
You're
it does.
Whoa,
it's like, dang.
So, but then on the front end, about it, so I said all that about all the things that are built into why it makes sense. Again, I'm not saying it's the right move. Who am I to say, and none of us had the crystal ball to say whether it's the right move or not. But I think if anything, all right, that kind of makes sense. And so, I'd rather them do that than give Tom Cable 10 years. You know what I'm saying?
Can I talk now?
Yeah, sorry. Wait, I did the intro. I said this was Sonny and Murf and not just the Murf show, right?
I know you got a Gruden chubby, so it's okay. All right. So
I do. I love the guy, man. It was the most, I'm telling you, it was the most exciting time. You said something last week, and I'm going to shut up. I promise. I'm going to let you do the rest of the talking on this thing. You said something a week or so ago about, as a fan, you always felt like you were chasing your dad's Raiders, that our dads in this center and my Uncle Murf and your dad, Uncle Bruz, the way that they experienced the Raiders of the 70s firsthand, and the accounts that they would give us as kids to tell us the stories about Stabler and Casper and heck, Todd Christensen and even, well, really not Marcus Allen. We were kind of old enough to see that, but you know what I mean? The Willie Brown and the Soul Patrol and all that guy, all those wonderful stories. You felt like you were chasing those Raiders, and you never really had your own like Raiders of any kind of
relevance.
Thank you. That's what Gruden was those years, but they were fleeting. It was fast. It was like just when it got started, it ended. We'll get into the production, all that stuff, but that's why I think that's what this could be for us, Sonny. This could be our Raiders that we've been chasing. I hate to put it like that, but you see what I mean? I think that's why this could be, and I think that's what a lot of us are feeling. That's why people are so fired up about him coming back. All right, you talk. I'm done. I'm pushing the microphone away from my face.
You sure? I can just sit back, Murph.
Let's go. No, go. I'm done.
I can sit back and play producer, bro.
Gosh, I just love. I love his freaking team, man. I can't stop talking about him. Go.
I don't mind playing producer. Okay.
Go. I'm done.
I was a Gruden naysayer at first. I didn't like it. I felt it was a cheap, cheesy attempt at trying to regain relevancy from the past and all that kind of stuff. I didn't think it was going to be a wise move. I didn't like it. And then after thinking about it, for the last week or so, however long it's been going on for, it actually makes so much sense, man, because what the Raiders did, what Mark Davis did, at least with the contract, now who knows if he actually will stay 10 years, but he just did quite a few things in one fell swoop. He just basically told every other coach around the league, we will pay you if we think you're worth it, which is what Al Davis never did, right? He wanted to nickel and dime everybody. So Mark Davis just said, hey, we're paying people over here. Come on over. Let's do this. He also said, we're in this for the long haul. No more 2-year, 3-year, 1 year, half a year stints for coaches. He just brought on John Gruden and said, hey, you're our guy. Carry us forward for the next 10 years. That's unprecedented in the NFL, also in regards to the Raiders. I mean, if you think about, if the Patriots did this or if the Steelers did this, you could expect that because they've had coaches for a long period of time. But for the Raiders to do it, for this team to do it, for the team that cuts a coach loose on the plane back from London to do this, that's an even more impactful thing, right? It's like, hey, man, we recognize the errors of our past, and here's what we're going to do. Come coach this damn team for 10 years, and let's see how this goes long term. And that, to me, is badass that Mark Davis did that. Of the last week, the way while I don't really agree with the way he fired Del Rio, the fact that he did it that way was freaking badass. And the way that he came in and basically said, Gruden, come be here for 10 years is badass. And the fact that he got Gruden is badass. Because everybody's always been chasing Gruden, right? You're out there in Nashville, Tennessee. all the hubbub about the Tennessee Volunteers getting Gruden, right? That was all the rave talk a month ago or something like that, right? Well, guess what? Mark Davis, bowl cut, wherever he eats out, Chili's, the stupid van that he drives, all of that. You know what? He freaking did it. And that's badass. And as Rodney Klassen points out, there's two teams that have remained relevant for a long period of time recently. The Belichick-led Patriots and the Tomlin-led Steelers, right? I think how about the Steelers had like 3 coaches in their history? You had Chuck Noll, and you had Cowher, and then you had Tomlin, right? And they've been consistently good because you come in, you develop a system, and you develop, a program, and then players come in and adhere to that program, and then things are good. And that's what Gruden is going to hopefully do for us for the next 10 years. On top of that, this is where Davis is smart, or whoever around him is smart. He just brought in a guy that can sell seats in Las Vegas. Because if we rolled into Vegas with freaking Jack Del Rio, we weren't going to sell a lot of seats, being 6 and 9 or stuff like that, right? But we or 6 and 10. But we come in with Gruden. Gruden is going to sell freaking seats, man. His personality alone can sell a seat for a 3-13 team. I don't think we'll be a 3-13 team, but Gruden alone can sell seats. So Davis, in one fell swoop, has really done a lot for this organization. And I'm actually pretty proud to call him my organization's owner. I mean, he got us a stadium. I mean, we're in massive debt, and this is, I think Davis is, we talked about Jack's big balls last year for going for it on 4th and 2 all the time. How about Davis's big freaking cojones, right? I mean, talk about all in, right? All in on a stadium. Here's all my chips. Give me $1 billion. Here you go. Hey, Gruden, come be our coach for 10 years. Here you go. Like, he's taking out loans from these guys. They're probably going to break his kneecaps if he doesn't pay through. And he's saying, blanket. Let's just do it, baby. So, on the heels of going to Vegas, Mark Davis says, I'm all in on Gruden. That's badass, man. And the stability that hopefully we get that hasn't been there. I mean, look at this, Murph. Madden and Flores from 1969 to 1987, regardless of what was happening with the coach, with Davis and all that, we had consistency at that position. And can you argue if there was ever a more winning period for the Raiders than the 70s and the 80s? I mean, you just can't, right? That's the only years we won the Super Bowl. That was when we established ourselves as being one of the top teams, not only in football, but in the whole entire sports realm, right? The Raiders were the winningest organization for years, and it was all built on those 70s and 80s teams. And now we're going to have, there you go, right? Now we're going to have that stability once again. And as a Raiders fan, to have stability as a coach, I mean, that was almost as shocking as having a Christian as your quarterback on the Raiders, right? We're going from Kenny Stabler to Derek Carr, and now we're going from, 4 coaches in 5 years to having Del Rio for 10. I mean, look at this from Gruden, right? So look at when Gruden left in 2001. Callahan for 2 years, Turner for 2 years, Shell for 1 year, Kiffin for 1.5 years, Cable for 2.5, Jackson for 1 year, Allen for 2.5, Soprano for 0.5, Del Rio for 3. So Del Rio's 3-year tenure was the longest we've had since Gruden left in 2001. And for all intents and purposes, Del Rio brought us back to relevancy. So then you take a tenure 3 times as long as Del Rio with the coach who's better than Del Rio, with the coach who has the huevos to call out players in a proper way, not to embarrass them, but to call them out and encourage them. Man, I'm hyped. I'm hyped now. It's cool. I wasn't cool at first because here's what I thought. I thought Gruden's been away from the game for too long. Gruden hasn't coached in a long time. Does Gruden still have it? Well, man, he actually has not been away from the game. If you think about it, Gruden is uniquely placed where maybe we just don't know, where few head coaches have been. For the last, 8 years, he's been on ESPN doing his Gruden camps. So he's been watching every player coming out of the draft. Yep. He's been working out all the quarterbacks, and he's been announcing games for the NFL. He hasn't gotten away from the game. If anything, he's gotten more immersed in the game as far as film goes, as far as development goes, as far as what's coming out of college and what works in the NFL. Everybody's kind of knocking him for his for his pick of Johnny Manziel, because remember he was high on Manziel. He wanted people to get on Manziel. So but Reggie drafted DJ Hayden. So go figure, right? So everybody misses once in a while. But the fact is, he hasn't gotten away from the game. If anything, he's gotten more immersed in the game. Maybe he hasn't been on a sideline calling plays for a minute, and I'll give you that. But man, dude, he hasn't gone anywhere. Now here's my only gripe so far.
Okay, all right.
Greg Olsen.
All right, so we'll go over the names real quick. So this is all speculation, folks. But the most recent, the hottest takes as far as what Gruden's going to do for his staff. He's talking about Greg Olsen, that Greg Olsen.
Wait. That Greg Olsen?
That Greg Olsen.
The Greg Olsen who was our offensive coordinator for a couple of years?
Yeah, that guy. He was Carr's first, wasn't he?
Let me look here. I believe
double check me on that one. But so Greg Olsen as offensive coordinator, but we'll get back to that one. I want to hear your take on it first, and then I'll give you mine. That way you get a chance to talk too.
Well, thanks, Murph.
You're welcome. So Greg Olsen is offensive coordinator. Paul Gunther, most recently of the Cincinnati Bengals. He is looking to be our defensive coordinator, not Gus Bradley, as I thought it would going to be. And then Rick Bisaccia. Wait, hold on. Bisaccia. There we go. Bisaccia. We're half Sicilian. I had to know this. Rich Bisaccia for special teams coach. He was with John Gruden back in Tampa. If you're wondering where Rich Bisaccia comes from, he comes from John's time down there. All right, give me your thoughts on one Gregory, middle name expletive Olsen.
Okay, for all the hype, for all the excitement I have about Gruden, when I heard he was bringing in Greg Olsen, I about just fell out of my chair and said, huh? Like, all right, Johnny, I get it. You think you're hot stuff. When Greg Olsen was our coordinator, Murph, we were 4-12 and 3-12. Our offense was back in 2013, 2014, right? That was when he was here. So during those years, we were 4-12 and 3-12.
So he missed. Did he miss Carr?
He had Carr the second year. Pryor was the first year.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
But Murph, our offensive rank the first year Greg Olsen was here was 24th, and then Carr's first year he was here, we were 31st in points in the league.
Right.
Not a big fan of that one. So as much hype as I have about Gruden, he comes in and that's his first move is to bring in Greg Olsen, and the whole entire Raider Nation kind of goes, huh? Like, huh?
All right.
But let me preface that with
go ahead.
With he has been on the Rams, and he has been the Rams quarterback coach, and he's been under Sean McVay for the last year or so. So he's been able to kind of watch McVay and see what McVay does. So maybe he's learned a thing or two.
And he was with the Broncos before that, right?
Go ahead.
Can you go to the Broncos after us?
I'm not sure. Let me look.
Pretty sure he went to the Broncos, and then he went to the Rams.
No, he went to the Jags, and then he went to the Rams.
Oh, okay.
He was offensive coordinator for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and then he went to the Rams.
Okay, maybe I just remember seeing him.
He was demoted. He was offensive coordinator. He was assistant head coach, offensive coordinator, and then he was demoted to quarterbacks coach. Like,
all right. So here's the thing. So here's the thing. Anything Greg Olsen or Bill Callahan or any of these, or Rich Gannon or any of these names that you hear being brought up as far as offensive quote coordinators or offensive assistants or any of that kind of stuff goes, none of them are going to overshadow what John Gruden is going to do offensively. Gruden is going to call the plays. He is going to have his hands directly on Derek Carr to coach him as a quarterback. He is going to develop all the schemes. He is going to, he's a West Coast offense guy. Like, we're not going to see, pushing the ball deep downfield. Like, think about when he ran this team before. It was Jerry Rice out of the slot. It was Charlie Garner. It was Wheatley. It was Zach Crockett from the 1 yard line. Like, this was not a deep drive the ball downfield type offense. This was a dink and dunk type offense, but a completely different type of dink and dunk offense than the crap.
You mean they're going to run 4 yard outs instead of 2 yard outs?
But guess what? These ones will be at the marker and actually convert for first downs. What a concept. I know.
What a concept.
But the whole point, though, is that Gruden's fingerprints will be all over the offense. These other guys are going to be assistants to him, which is really a lot of times with your head coach. He's the guy kind of overseeing the whole process, and your offensive coordinators are the ones that are kind of in the dirt, drawing up the schemes, drawing up the plays, working directly with the players. But that's Gruden's role. That's what he likes to do, and that's frankly.
So do you think Greg Olsen is just a placeholder? He's just the guy designated to be that guy, but it's going to be Gruden's offense.
Yes, he is maybe not necessarily so much the placeholder, but I would say he's the guy that's going to help him break down film. He's the guy that's going to help him find tendencies. He's the guy that's going to help them strategize against the upcoming opponent. He's the guy that's going to help John take the crop of players that currently play for the Oakland Raiders and then design something for them to play in. Yeah, that's going to be the West Coast. Well, Jerry Rice never played in the slot his entire friggin' career, and then all of a sudden, look what happened when he came to the Raiders. He became a slot receiver and a darn good one, despite what our thoughts were about Jerry Rice and the ex-Niner. But the point is that he played in the slot. You saw what Bruce Arians has done with Larry Fitzgerald, kind of this conceptually the same thing. They moved him inside, and all of a sudden the guy's a freaking Hall of Famer at 38 years old or however old he is. So my point being is that that's what these guys are going to do. That's what these offensive guys that you hear the names being brought up, that's what they're going to do. They're going to help John do the dirty work on all that late night studying and scheming and all that stuff that Gruden is famous for. These are the guys that are going to help him do that. They're not going to be, quote, offensive coordinators. Gruden is your offensive coordinator. So I think that any of the Greg Olsen trepidation, don't worry about it, Raider Nation, because it ain't going to be him anyways. It's going to be John. Now, defensively,
hold on, let me say something. Ron from Alliance in the chat states that Gruden and all these assistants share the same agent. Is this a agent driving the boat here, Murph?
I don't think so. I think that's overthinking it. And, at the end of the day, look, when you look at the relationships that John Gruden has formed in the league, they're lengthy, right? And so he's going to bring back guys that he's comfortable with, and he's going to bring back guys that he thinks are going to enable his success. I don't for a second believe that an agent is in his ear saying, hey, you should get that guy. John Gruden cares about winning football games, and he's going to bring in people that are going to give him the biggest opportunity to win football games. So where I am more curious is the Rich Bisaccia. I think that's special teams, that's one of those things that, it can go either way, right? Like, I mean, we hadn't been returning kicks anytime recently that I can remember. In fact, we've had issues with it more than anything, especially.
I have exercised more recently than the Raiders have returned a kick for a touchdown.
There you go. So, and especially bringing in Cordero Patterson, we thought we were going to see some electricity in that, and we haven't. All we've seen is fumbles out of Jalen Richard. So we went backwards, if anything, on that. So as far as Rich Bisaccia goes, I hope he, brings positivity and a better play on special teams. I don't know enough about him, nor the breakdown of special teams at the NFL level to speak one way or the other, but I'll trust John. Here's the one I am curious about. Paul Guenther, Cincinnati Bengals defensive coordinator. That wasn't a real splashy name. Bengals really, what have they done this year? Now, granted, years prior, a lot of turnovers, which is what the Raiders need. This is what they were known for, especially back in Gruden's days. His first tenure with the team, and something frankly that we've lacked tremendously this year, right? Our turnover ratio went way down this year, where it was way up in the 12-4 year. So maybe this is the right guy. Again, I don't know enough about his track record, nor watched enough Cincinnati Bengals games but what we do know about him, they do create a lot of turnovers, and that's kind of what we need. So, and listen, Gruden is not a defensive guy. So this is one that's
not a defensive guy.
This has got to be a good one and Gruden also knows he's not a defensive guy. So he's going to give the defense to the defensive guy. He gave it to Chuck Bresnahan when we had him the first time, and Bresnahan was a stud. And we know what our defense did back there in the old days. So Paul Guenther, I don't know.
Are you upset that Pagano is not going to get a chance? He came on, had a pretty significant uptick in the defense when he came on. I felt maybe he deserved a shot, but I get it. New coach, new staff, new regime, clear the house, all that kind of stuff. maybe he's kind of baby with the bathwater in this situation. Is that kind of your thoughts on that?
I think that's exactly what it is. You hit it exactly on the head. That's what, when you get a new head coach, they bring in their staff. And now there may be some leftovers at lower level positions. Like you might see a Mike Tice stick around, or we might see Rod Woodson stick around. Like we might see guys like that kind of hang around. But outside of that, no, man, you're not going to, head coach, especially when you're talking about a coordinator. Because again, these are the guys that are going to be in the rooms with him, helping him break down film day in, day out, hour in, hour out. He's going to be working, side by side with these guys a lot. And so he's going to bring in his guys, and all coaches are like that. That's not exclusive to John Gruden. So yeah, I think it's unfortunate for Pagano, but we'll say this, he's going to land somewhere, and he's going to land on his feet because, he's got now a pretty nice looking resume from his latest, run with the Raiders, that if there was anything positive about our football team in the second half of the year, it was that, right? It was how our defense did that, Marshawn.
So Paul Gunther's been with the Bengals forever. Been with them since 2005. Started out as an assistant, then went to a DB special teams, then went to a linebacker coach. For the last 4 seasons, he's been their defensive coordinator. Since 2014, he's been their coordinator. Of those 4 years, 2014, they were 14th overall in points given up. 2015, they were 5th. 2016, they were 19th. In 2017, they were 22nd. So for the last 3 years, his defense has consecutively gotten worse. Is that more about the Bengals' issues, or is that about this guy's issues?
I think that's more of the Bengals issues, right? You look at they're kind of aged out a little bit, didn't they? Pac-Man, Reggie Nelson departing, Ray Maluga. Like you look at the players that were kind of their home run hitters on defense. Geno Atkins is still there, but look at those guys.
They lost Reggie Nelson.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And so, I don't watch Bengals games every week, but I don't know them.
Where's Domino? We should talk to Domino. He would know.
But Domata Petco, right? Like he's gone. Like if you look at a lot of the big time players on the defense of the Cincinnati Bengals in the past, over the past however long you just said, the last 3 years, those players have all left or declined dramatically in their skill sets. So I think that's fine. Because look at when the guy had players, they were great. So we'll take them. So hey, listen, let's move it a little bit here. We said or early on today, I made a post because I knew we were going to be doing the special report, the special report of Raiders Fan Radio.
Brick Talon, champ.
Brick Talon. And so I put it out there that we wanted to at least take a couple of voicemails based on what we got in. Well, look, we decided on one. I got one voicemail because I think this one voicemail, and sorry to those that called in, but we're doing a short show tonight. This one voicemail I thought encapsulated perfectly everything that kind of going on around the Gruden thing, and it did it efficiently. So congratulations to our buddy Ron. We're going to play your voicemail right now.
What's up, guys? Ron from Alliance here. Starting to feel a lot better about this hire based on things that are happening. Long contract for Gruden, which I'm good with. I think, stability is the best thing. Extended contracts for coordinators off the bat sounds good to me. Looks like they're adding some upper management positions, which also I think is a good thing. And I think this is more than Mark throwing cash at Gruden. This seems to be Mark saying, tell me what you need to win and I'll provide it. Everything he's doing is at Gruden's behest, and it seems like he really believes in him. And the fact that Reggie turned down the GM position for Green Bay, or at least an interview for it, I think speaks volumes.
That's a big deal.
Because a lot of people think,
great point.
Reggie's out the doors because of Gruden. Mm-hmm. He's hanging around, and that inspires a lot of confidence that, hey, man, there's people in the building that believe in this and have a vision, which is really good. So, my concerns about this being a PR move seem to be less and less. It seems like they're doing a lot of really good things ahead of the coaching, and ahead of the positional things. And if Rich Gannon does come along, for a QB coach, man, I think he would be phenomenal as a quarterback's coach. And the overall effect in this, I think is that Carr and Mac aren't really vocal leaders. You know, Carr tries to be, but it doesn't seem like he's going to get up and challenge anybody. Gruden will definitely be the adult in the room. So maybe that takes pressure off Carr and Mac, that they can just go play. Or maybe maybe he'll instill in those guys that fire that he has to go out and challenge people. But the more that goes on, the more I hear about the moves they're making, the better this sounds. So, as usual, I'm wrong about everything on my first thoughts. So, have a good one, guys.
Appreciate the call, Ron. In the counseling business, they call that first thought, wrong thought. And I had the same exact reaction. After I sat back and started thinking about it, it makes a lot of sense. Jack and John went up the hill to catch the silver and black. Jack was fired and John was hired, and soon we'll have the Lombardi back.
Oh, I love it.
Can't take credit for it. Juan Cano posted that to the RNFL group page. Just thought that was pretty dope.
I love it. Nicely done.
Yeah. Okay, Murph, final thoughts. We want to get out real quick. Let's just go final thoughts.
Final thought, I think this is a fantastic hire on all accounts, especially if everyone is aligned to a specific job role. Ron just touched on it. Reggie McKenzie turned down an opportunity to return to the Green Bay Packers. Huge. Reggie is your money man.
That's a lot of insight right there, right? I mean, the fact that he turned it down, he didn't even talk to him.
Didn't even interview. No. So Mark owns your team. Mark is the owner. Reggie is your in charge of player personnel and, most importantly, money, which John is not good at. So he's our money man.
John's pretty good at money. John just got a 10-year contract for $100 million.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me go through my final thoughts.
Sorry.
Mark is in the ownership spot. Reggie is your money man and talent evaluator, or at least in charge of securing personnel and structuring contracts. John is in charge of personnel and or partially has strong input in personnel, and obviously on field, and most importantly, this offense and the rest of his team, Olsen, Gunther, and Bisaccia on special teams. So I think it's great on all accounts. Let the football people run the football team, and I hope they compartmentalize such to where there's not any chance for overlap, for dysfunction and conflict between Reggie and John. And I don't think there is. That was another question. I don't think that's going to be there. So by all accounts, Raider Nation, this is a good thing for our team. It's been a long time since we were relevant, year in, year out, and this hire returns that opportunity and that chance for us to be so, and that can't be a bad thing. And with Gruden, we know we'll have some fun along the way.
At first, I thought it was Lynch 2.0. When we brought on Lynch, it was obvious this was a PR move to kind of stabilize the fans in Oakland. However, Lynch could still play, and maybe Murph, this is like Lynch, but yet a better move. When we brought on Lynch, it was let's appease the local fan base because we're leaving. We did that, but also Lynch provided for us. Towards the end, Lynch was running like a madman. And two things were accomplished. One, the local fan base, and two, we got ourselves a stud running back. Maybe this is the exact same thing. I think it's beyond a PR move. It is a PR move to a certain degree. It's gonna bring in Reggie McKenzie a hell of a lot of money in PSLs and ticket sales and just the hype of Raider Nation once again, right? And you consider what happened after the hype of last year. The Raiders came out and crapped the bed this year. They weren't going to get a lot of talk. If nothing changed, if the only thing that changed was Todd Downing was fired and that was it, the Raiders weren't going to get a lot of love in the press, right? Now that we got Gruden, is there a more exciting story in the NFL right now? Right? Maybe if all this stuff about the Patriots is true and they unravel in the offseason, I'm sure that'll get a lot of cred and a lot of publicity. But man, maybe this is little Johnny boy coming up and the Patriots going out and it's our league for the taking if the Patriots thing is true. So all that
talked about Brady handing the torch off to Derek Carr and how poetic.
But that was last year we talked about.
That happened with freaking Gruden on the sideline.
Well, and maybe we were a little premature in wishing the Foxborough revenge, right? Maybe it's going to now. Gruden comes back, gets this team back on track because we know the talent's there. He gets us back on track. We go to Foxborough with Gruden and beat the Patriots. Talk about freaking redemption that would be, right?
Oh, my God. Awesome.
That would be amazing, right? That would be amazing. So all that said, I think the Raiders are accomplishing quite a few things here. They're shoring up stability for a long time. They're bringing in attractive coach that can bring in players, that can bring in other coaches that want to play for him. He's knowledgeable about the game. It's also a good PR move, but it's also good for the organization as a whole. I think it's a great hire, Murph. Initially, I didn't like it, but after dwelling on it for the last couple days, man, like, it's cool, it's exciting, and I think it's exactly what the Raiders needed and Raider Nation needed after what was the most miserable season I've ever experienced as a Raiders fan. So I'm stoked for it, man. I'm excited for it. I can't wait till Tuesday. Tuesday goes down, right?
Tuesday goes down. We'll find out. I don't think they've even announced when the timing of the press conference is, but we will all know all the details on Tuesday. Until then, I would imagine that once tomorrow's over, Gruden is calling the Titans Chiefs tomorrow.
Saturday, yeah.
And after that, all of his commitments to announcing are done. So I'd imagine that's when even more details will start to come out. So stay tuned to Adam Schefter. Ian Rappaport's been a good one on this. Those are really the two main guys. And our buddy Scott Winter, friend of the show, Scott Winter, he's been all over this thing too. So grats to him on his what do you want to call it? His sources, I guess, or
grats to him on his fast typing fingers.
There you go. Yeah. He's been all over it. But pay attention to those guys and stay with the breaking news, because I imagine more details are going to come out. But really, I mean, what else do we need to know at this point, right? If it's a long contract and we're getting Gruden back, that's all I need to know. Done.
That's it. Exciting times. A good Christmas present after a pretty disheartening Christmas present. And, new year, new me. With the duck lips and the peace sign and all that stuff. Every white girl posts that on Facebook these days. It's going to be exciting. I'm excited for it. I'm happy for it. And Raiders for Life is sending us a hype video. We'll look forward to checking that out. Appreciate you guys tuning in. This was your RFR special report with Brick Tamlin, Champ, Ron Burgundy, and Murph. Yes, Murph. Murph is Veronica in this twosome here.
Hey, and thanks for everybody that checked us out on the live stream. And please pay attention. That sounds weird. Please check us out on a regular show every week. Raiders Fan Radio, iTunes, Stitcher, CastBox, TuneIn, anywhere you can find your podcast. Give us a thumbs up, give us a like, give us a review, even if it's bad. Well, don't if it's bad. But you wouldn't be watching us if you thought we were that bad.
Okay. Let's get out of here. RaidersFanRadio.com. Check us out. Peace.